This is Anthony Gioffre, award-nominated local and national activist. Thank you for being here, Anthony.
It's my pleasure, as always.
So, why did you become an activist?
I was born. I was really, actually, that's not so far from the truth. I think that I was just a born activist. My gifts, which have been unfolded in front of me as my life has progressed, is that I have a voice. My talents, my God-given talents are in broadcasting and being vocal. One of my first activisms or activist gestures was back in New York City in the late 70s with the movie Cruising. So most of my, starring Al Pacino, which was showing the LGBT community in a not so favorable light. That's where activism was first introduced to me as far as a concept of what it's like to join a group of people, to make a statement, to be recognized, to raise consciousness, and things like that. My first gay pride was also in New York City in the mid to late 70s. It's a long time ago, so I'm trying to remember. I think it was in 75 or 76, and so I observed at first, but that opened the door for me to say that it was okay, that when you let your own voice be heard, you automatically allow others to do the same.
Thank you. What social, economic, or political issues have been the focus of your activism?
Well, the LGBT community and issues concerning the LGBT community have been the primary focus of my activism. I had been, first of all, I think it's important just to mention that as an LGBT community member, as a gay man, my responsibility I always took on to myself as just a personal activist. In other words, my activism would oftentimes lie between a one-on-one, person to person. I always said that I was gay, even from the late 70s, because I knew that it took everyone to do a little bit in order for a movement to come to fruition. So I spoke up each and every time that I felt I needed to.
Did you ever speak at a political level?
I have spoken at many political levels, yes. I will go as I was a member of ACT UP San Francisco. ACT UP San Francisco was a radical, a very far to the left activist group, which was responsible for the passing of the Ryan White Care Act of 1994 and bringing attention to the AIDS crisis. At the time, it was limited to mainly gay men and mainly people who were considered at the time to be on the fringes of society. The back alley junkies, prostitutes, and gay men were also considered in that group as far as being on the fringes of society. So, knowing that this is a virus, this isn't actual, something that chooses a group of people. Knowing that already, I joined the group and led the group into many political actions that were, how can I say it, that were pretty radical. We got into the state buildings in San Francisco, and we were the ones who put red paint on our hands and would make our way into these office buildings and just put our red painted hands over everything.
So that leads to my next question. What is the strategy? Did you have a strategy for your activism at that time?
A strategy? There was always a plan. The strategy.
Yeah. So from my understanding, you did a lot of journalism. Was that part of your strategy?
Oh, for sure.
Letting the people know.
For sure. Once I got a hold of cameras, it was all over. So I've personally covered stories on bullying, on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Marriage equality, I have not. Marriage equality, I got married on the first day that I could to my husband. So that was my personal act of activism regarding marriage equality. I've covered issues. I like to get down to the heart of the matter. Society is used to putting a Band-Aid over a lot of problems, okay? Let's do this and put a Band-Aid over this. Let's put a Band-Aid over this. When I'm more concerned about getting down to the heart of the matter and really getting into down to causes and conditions. So
and resolutions.
And thus resolutions.
Right.
Yes, instead of just saying let's, once I got a hold of cameras, it was all over. I became a published broadcast journalist here in San Diego and in West Hollywood on these very issues. I interviewed the only mixed martial arts star undefeated in the ring in Los Angeles about bullying. I've interviewed on topics of LGBT youth homelessness. I'm not really concerned about homelessness. That would be a Band-Aid. I'm concerned about youth homelessness and the reason, getting down to causes and conditions of exactly why these problems then play out on our streets, like homelessness, like drug addiction, like mental illness. Things like that.
Perfect. So what forms of action do you think are the most effective as an activist, and why?
Media. Because you can reach as many people there with your spoken word. Now, when you're in the media, there is a tremendous amount of responsibility that goes along with that. You can't just say whatever you want, especially here in Southern California or living in a somewhat conservative city. One needs to know how to play politics, what magazines or online newspapers to be published in that would be most effective for the topic that we're talking about. Right now, I am published in the LGBTweekly.com and the San Diego Gay and Lesbian News.com, SDGLN.com, with two separate articles. And these two newspapers are rivals, so it's kind of unheard of that an individual would be published in both magazines. So if I could say something positive about myself, it's that not only do you need to study and be very clear about what you are doing, but you also have to convince other people and lead by what you're saying that it is in fact important, it is in fact accurate, and it's going to create change. If I just go about my business blah blah blahing all over the place and saying what I want on Facebook, or whatever, okay, so that's one thing. But to actually put it all together with a goal, with an end goal, that this is what it's going to raise consciousness about this particular matter, that is going to slowly create people to either change or suffer the consequences.
Perfect. What do you think have been the results of your activism?
Raised consciousness and change. I reported years ago, not so many years ago, about 3 years ago, I reported on LGBT youth homelessness in San Diego, that there was an 8.6% jump in homelessness, and that 40% of the homeless identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. So there was somewhat of a crisis on our hand. I interviewed the district attorney, Bonnie Dumanis, and Supervisor Todd Gloria, a city councilman, Todd Gloria, on LGBT youth homelessness. And what has come as a result of that is a care center at the LGBT center, a drop-in group, much more raised consciousness about LGBT youth homelessness and where it starts from, and and what we can do about it at the um, at the um, at the level that what am I trying to say? At the source level, at the level of cause. So it has been effective in raising consciousness and slowly raising money to do something about our own LGBT youth and their homelessness.
Perfect. Thank you. If somebody wanted to find out some more about you, how would they do so?
Oh, in the media. I'm all over the media. There's a community profile on sdgln.com. One can go to www.weho news, weho meaning West Hollywood, weho.news.com. I'm published there. I have a compilation on Facebook of all of my work, and that can be found on two different pages, Facebook pages. One is Anthony.interviews, and the other is Anthony.men's magazine. And they're both on Facebook, and all of my work is there. Written articles, broadcast journalism, the whole bit. So get ready. And, and those are the pages you can visit. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Oh,
it was
my
pleasure.
Always.
Thank you so
Thanks.
My friend Anthony shared about how he had to get political for a lot of the movements that he was involved in to work. And I'm going to reference a statement here in my reading. The reading was Youth Identity Power, the Chicano Movement. It says here, "We must redefine politics for our people to be a means of liberation. The political sophistication of our raza must be raised so that they do not fall prey to apologists and vendidos, whose whole interest is their personal career or future." Anthony was involved in movements that were political, but not for political gain of self. He was for the people, and in the early '70s, early '60s, early gay history. It was a very taboo subject at the time. So him being involved in the stuff that he was against the grain, I guess you could say. It was a challenge, and it wasn't easy. But the stances that they made at that time really ushered in a lot of the equal rights that we have today. So I want to thank him for his work. He still is involved in activism. He does He does journalism. He continuously is out and about and working with the community. He currently gives back. He volunteers at Stepping Stone, and he just does a world of good. And now I'm gonna wrap that up. Thank you.